Show. Innovate, connect, and bloom.
Welcome to the Bloom Show. This is Saeed, your host. The Bloom Show is brought to you by New Bloom Solutions and Above All Flowers. And this show is for the floral community, by the floral community. And you can check out that we have a California vibe. And why do we have a California vibe? Because the Bloom Show and Flowers and Scents will be at Fun and Sun doing some great 3 shows live. We have the first day at the cocktail. Then we have live That Flower Feeling panel, which is going to be amazing. Why? Because it's the first time ever in the flower industry to doing a panel live. And then the second one is going to be the first time ever, the original, the only, the Bloom Show Road Show, where we'll be highlighting different exhibitors at the convention. But today, if you are a floral industry professional of any sort, from a grower to a wholesaler to a distributor to a supermarket, of any sort, to a florist, of course, this is the show for you. And why? Because today we have Mr. Thomas Prince of Prince and Prince talking about and sharing information and statistics about consumer purchasing habits, and as well as a new hot topic, self-purchasing, and how that could increase your floral sales. So tune in till the end so we can ask questions. I'll be asking some questions. You could ask some questions as well at the end. And then at the end, we're going to be highlighting certain opportunities for sponsorship and where the Bloom Show will be next. So thank you for joining. Please don't forget, if you like the show and you want to show your support to Thomas Prince or show your support to us at the Bloom Show and to me, Saeed, the host of the Bloom Show, then please subscribe, press the little alert key, and make sure to share as well. Share with your audience, share with your customers, share with your salespeople. This is great information, shareable information. And don't forget that the floral industry, that the Bloom Show is made for the floral industry, to help the floral industry to innovate, connect, and bloom by building community and bringing experts like Thomas Prince directly to you. So next, all you're going to see is Thomas Prince. You've had enough of me. Now you'll see Thomas Prince, and he'll be showing his slide and his presentation. Chime in and ask questions after, and thank you for showing up. See you soon.
The Bloom Show. Innovate, connect, and bloom.
Hello, welcome. My name is Thomas Prince, and welcome to the Bloom Show. Today we're going to be covering information from the research we've conducted over the past 20 years. Today we're going to be looking at consumer floral purchasing for self-purchasing. I don't see that slide here on the show right now. I've got the Mother's Day presentation up. So Saeed, could we bring up the self-purchasing presentation? Saeed, could we bring up the self-purchasing presentation? I don't want to go back and give the old mother.
Give me a minute, Tom. I'm doing it right now.
I don't want to give the Mother's Day presentation. I may say a few things differently this time, but I really like to get to the presentation for self-purchasing. That's one of the key aspects of our study, is the fact that we did cover a broad selection of holidays, events, and occasions where consumers would possibly make a floral purchase. And in our survey research, we actually cover 24 different holidays, events, and occasions. And we covered Valentine's Day back in our January presentation. And then we covered Mother's Day in our April presentation. And now we're covering an area which I've had some discussion with some members of the industry on, everyday floral purchasing. And when we developed our survey back in 1996, we said we really wanted to cover what would we understand for everyday floral purchasing. How would we word that in the survey? So we came down to 2 different attributes. One is for home decor, home decoration, and another aspect would be, well, just if there's no reason at all, just like for myself, buying floral for myself. So we added that attribute into the survey, and we were able to capture consumer floral purchasing throughout the year for myself or for home decor. And we have those trends now. In this presentation today, we're only going to be covering our data from 2000, 2007, our 2013 study, and our last study, which was conducted right before COVID, 2019. And so we have that trend line almost over 20 years for the various the two aspects of floral purchasing. Here we are. Self-purchasing of floral products. If without further ado, let's go. Our objectives of the study was to gain understanding of historical consumer purchasing trends over the past 20 years for self-purchasing of floral products. And again, like I said, for myself and for home decor. And we want to know how these purchasing trends vary by consumer demographics. We're going to be looking today at consumer age, educational attainment, and product usage, which is the level of household floral spending throughout the year. And then we're going to discuss the self-purchasing trends and their implications for more effective industry floral marketing, all in an effort to help build the consumer floral market for everyday floral purchasing. And then at the end, we're going to continue to explore, as we've done in our other two presentations, our theory, which we call the obligate floral purchasing theory. And this kind of depicts what we believe is the evolution of the everyday floral buyer. Next slide, please. Our research framework, and this covers what we covered before in our previous presentations. It comes from four studies that we've conducted over the years. Prince & Prince nationwide surveys of U.S. floral buying households, again from year 2000, 2007, 2013, and 2019. And the reason we have those studies, we did some studies in between some of those years, but we have about equal time distance between those studies, and that we need that for some of the statistical analytics that we do when we look at the significance of the trends. All the data today is from the Prince & Prince U.S. Consumer Floral Tracking Surveys, and each of these surveys comprised a random selection over 1,000 floral buying households throughout the year. And this gives us a plus minus 3% sampling error for each study. So each study that we have 1,000 buyers of floral buyers. These are all floral buyers who have purchased floral product throughout the year, a small amount to a large amount. Didn't matter how much they purchased, but they had to purchase at least one floral product throughout the year. That's what we define as a floral buyer. And we sent out a 4-page survey, and it captures over 100 metrics on floral purchasing behavior: what they buy, where they buy, when they buy, why they buy, and how much they spend on the two big categories: fresh cut flowers, and we have a description of what those are, and indoor potted flowering plants and foliage plants, and we have a description of what those are. The survey method did comprise mailed surveys for our early years of the study, 2000, 2007, and 2013. And then later, for our 2019 study, we did a mixed mode survey where we combined both our mailed surveys, and we also conducted an internet-based survey for the 2019 study. And the reason we did this is we were finding in our 2013 study that some of our data looked like there was a slight statistical bias, almost becoming significant in our 2013 study, which indicated that our study was being biased towards a little bit older demographic. And we were looking at different survey researchers and so forth in the field, and found that Don Dillman at Washington State University, who's been studying survey research methodology for, God knows, like 50 years or so. He's now an emeritus professor at Washington State. And he's been studying survey research, and he indicated that for current surveys now, you really need to tie together a mail-based survey and an internet-based survey, because you ameliorate the biases. The internet survey biases towards the younger demographic. The mail-based survey biases generally towards an older demographic, and you can ameliorate that bias by using both survey methods in your research. And we do that, and we're going to be using that method forward in all our future studies. Next slide, please. We define floral products as fresh cut flower, fresh arrangements, bouquets, single stems, bunches, and corsages, and indoor potted flowering plants and indoor potted foliage plants and planters. For this reporting today, we're going to be covering a survey metrics of for myself and home decor. And we just measured those in the survey as simply yes or no. Did you purchase floral product for myself? Did you purchase floral product for home decor? And we describe what floral products are. And they just respond yes or no to that survey question. And the metrics are computed as could I go back, please? I know we got to move forward quickly today. We got a lot to cover, but if we can go back, yes, as a percentage of floral buying households that make at least one floral purchase for myself and/or for home decor for this particular survey year. And we show later that both survey metrics, they do converge together on a factor, which we call self-purchasing. So when I asked the question earlier, is home decor considered self-purchasing? Well, the data supports that they both converge on a factor we call self-purchasing. So that is true. Home decor and for myself collectively define self-purchasing. Next slide, please. Here are the holidays, events, occasions that we cover in the survey. I said there were 24, and we covered Valentine's Day before and also Mother's Day. Today, we're going to covering two: home decoration, home decor, and what we call for myself. Next slide. In the previous reporting, we covered more in detail the consumer floral market. I'm just going to cover it briefly today. In year 2000, our surveys, we estimated the market to be about 14 billion. This is consumer retail value, includes the product and any associated services, any delivery, any upgrading, any types of value added trinkets added to the bouquet or arrangement. In year 2019, our estimate was it rose to 19 billion. And we made a projection in our last reporting for 2025. Now our projection is nearly 25 billion. If we look at the trend in both fresh cut flowers and indoor potted plant, those trends, and we come up with a 25 billion total market for the industry. And if you want more information about this, I did a LinkedIn report. Where is the U.S. floral market now headed? A look back and a look ahead. There's a link there, and it's on my my LinkedIn page on LinkedIn, and plus other reporting that I've done over the years. Next slide, please. So let's look at the household incidence of consumer floral purchase. Let's look at the top 6 floral categories. Next slide, please. This slide was familiar to what we covered before. We looked at the top categories from our survey research of incidence of floral purchase. It is, did anyone in the household make at least one floral purchase throughout the year for that survey year in these categories? And these are among floral buying households. These are all floral buying households. So of floral buying households, 60% said they bought floral for birthdays, which is the top category. Of course, birthdays occur throughout the year, so it's hard to compare birthday, which is throughout the year, to other individual daily holidays. But it was the top category, 60%. Followed closely by Mother's Day at 59%. And then slightly down further was Valentine's Day. And then funeral sympathy came in at 37%. We haven't covered that one in detail yet, but that's something we could possibly do for future presentations. And then we come to the two that follow in 5th and 6th position, home decor at 35%, and for myself at 34%. And that was surprising to us that if we ask in a survey, did you buy floral product just for yourself? Just for yourself, not for a gift, not for any particular occasion, but for myself. And we had about a third of the floral buyers indicated, or 34% indicated that they buy floral for myself. So I thought this was a little bit higher than what our thoughts were before when we did the research. Next slide, please. So about 35% of all floral buying households throughout the U.S. purchase floral product for home decor and for myself, a little bit lower at 34%. And this is back in our last study in 2019. Consumer self-usage of floral ranks below holiday occasion floral purchasing for birthdays, Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, and for funeral sympathy. Consumer self-usage of floral, however, does rank ahead of 18 other events and occasions that are measured in the survey, and I showed those previously. Next slide, please. So some key questions that come out of this is, since consumer self-usage of the floral is not tied to any particular holiday, occasion, or event, is there possibly more sales opportunity for this type of floral usage? So we need to think about that in the industry. What's the expansion of buying for myself, since it's really not tied to any particular day, event, or holiday? So that's what drives a lot of people thinking, but it's really the sky's the limit when it comes to consumer self-purchase of floral. But then we have to think about what motivates the consumer to make an initial floral purchase for oneself, and then what motivates repeat floral purchasing for oneself. So those questions need to be thought about and answered, and I don't think we know a lot of information about that yet. What motivates? We know what people are looking for sometimes, but what motivates the repeat purchase and so forth. So that we have more to understand about this. And this leads to the next question, which I'm interested in. Is there a process that consumers follow, or possibly a sequence of behaviors that are exhibited in becoming an everyday floral purchaser? We came to this thought after work we had done for the Flower Promotion Organization. We analyzed data for that study, which was actually promotional by the industry for everyday floral. And we analyzed and did some survey research to analyze the success of that promotional campaign. And it was successful in increasing floral purchasing for every day, but it wasn't up to the expectations of what the funders of the research wanted. And so I came out of that thinking, well, why didn't the messages, why didn't the ad campaign work better? And we looked at the data that we were collecting at the time and started seeing that there were some relationships between minimal buyers, which were new floral buyers, and the holidays and events and occasions that they were purchasing for. And we came to this process of thinking, well, maybe there's an obligate reason for initiating purchase. And maybe that's what gets people initiated in floral buying. And then after that, what other types of buying do they do? And so we had this data on all these different holidays, events, and occasions. And so we started looking at some of the relationships in all these variables. So, and we're still working on that, but we put together a model. We'll talk about it later on in the presentation. So the floral industry likely needs to better understand consumer behavior about self-purchasing of floral products to really fully realize the purchasing potential of this market. We'll show you right now that there are some limitations to that. So let's look at the trend and incidence of floral purchase for home decor and for myself. Next slide, please. Here is a graph of or chart of the U.S. household incidence of floral purchase for home decor and for myself across the survey years. And these are the 4 key survey years from 2000 to 2019. We see that in year 2000, home decor was at 41%, for myself was at 34%. It dropped a bit in 2007. Again, this was right before the Great Recession, 2008. And in our reporting in that article, we'll show that I believe we talked about the fact that there was some drop in floral spending by certain groups in 2007, even before the recession hit. There was some pullback in floral spending among some of the bigger floral buyers. So we were at 39% in 2007. For myself dropped a couple percentage points down to 32. We came out of the recession about 5 years later, and we're about 34% on each, 35 for home decor, 34% for myself. And then we did a study again in 2019, and it hadn't changed much. it was still 35% and 34%. So it's almost like, did we hit some kind of a ceiling, a glass ceiling there? Uh, uh, we saw recovery from the recession, but we didn't really see from 2013 to 2019, especially when we look at the other floor purchasing categories. Some of those were up, but we didn't see any increase, but it did maintain itself. It did maintain itself. Next slide, please. And so we did a statistical analysis and found out, well, what's the best fit statistical function for that. And it was a linear function. Shows it a slight linear decline for home decor. Here's our home decor data, going from 41% in 2000 down to around 35% in 2019. And so it was a linear trend line. So that's something that's somewhat worrisome, that it is a significant trend line down. Next slide, please. We did the same. Oh, yes. I superimposed here the number of households. Even though those percentages were on a decline over the years, you have to understand that that's the incidence of purchase of floral buyers. The number of floral buyers in the market, of course, continues to increase year after year because population increases year after year in the U.S., or has been over the past 30, 40 years. So we see that in 2000, there was 105 million households, went to 116 million by 2007, 123 million by 2013, and we're at 128 million by 2019. And I think now it's somewhere around 130, 132 million for 2024. So households keep increasing, the number of floral buyers keeps increasing. So the actual sales probably are going up for home decor, even though the incidence is down somewhat slightly, because the increase in households outweighs the decline in the actual purchase incidence. Next slide, please. When we looked up for myself, there are the data points. No statistical line fit the data. It was not a linear trend, so it was a straight line across. No linear trend up or linear trend down. So there was no statistical function fit the data because there was no trend line. So it's a constant around 34% over the survey years. Now, I did go back earlier data for myself, and found that back in 1996, when we did our initial study, it was around 30%. So it did move up from 96 to 2000. But since that time frame, it's been about the same, around 34%, and it hasn't changed over the last 20 years. Next slide, please. Of course, we add those households in and we say that, well, the incidence hasn't increased, but probably the sales have, because the population has increased, and for the same reasons over time. Increasing number of population, increased number of floor buying households, and we get an increase in the total dollars spent for myself. Next slide, please. So let's look at the trend highlights. For home decor, there's been a slight linear decline in household incidence of floor purchase for home decor over the past 19 years. And this again from year 2000 to 2019. The incidence of floor purchasing for home decor declined from 41% in 2000, and that was a peak because we had earlier data suggesting it was lower, and to 35% in 2019, a 6 percentage point decline over 19 years. And in fact, home decor in 1996 was around 40%. So it did peak up a little bit. The linear declining trend line in consumer floor purchasing for home decor from those years is statistically significant at the 99% confidence level. And this suggests to us the slight decline is projected to continue because we have a significant trend line over 20 years. Next slide, please. So the slight decline in household purchase incidence for home decor is likely, again, not felt by the industry, as the number of households continues to expand at a higher rate. It's around 1% annually. And that's compared to the slight decline in purchase incidents. It's about 1/3 of 1% annually. Consumer floral purchasing for myself has been very stable over the past 2 decades, about 34% purchase incidents. And the growth in households of the past 20 years likely gives the industry an impression that sales for myself have been on the increase, but the actual incidence of purchase has remained the same. And that's important to know. Next slide, please. And so if we look at what's going to happen in the future, I've talked about this in my last 2 presentations. We look at the Brookings Institute has pulled together some census data and looked at population change and what is projected to occur, and that looked at different scenarios of high immigration, low immigration, if there was a change in our immigration policies, and looking at the historical. And so even, the best case scenario, I mean, if you look at historical or if it changed to more immigration, there would be increasing in household populations up to probably year 2080 and even higher under high immigration scenario. If we had some cutbacks or some restrictions in immigration under the low immigration scenario, our population would probably peak at close to 350 million, probably around 2040, and then start a slight decline. And then if we had no immigration, the decline would start rapidly. But under no circumstance or a few circumstances would that actually happen, that we'd actually have zero immigration. So our scenario or the future is that we're likely going to have population increases for the foreseeable future, at least for the next 30 to 50 years or more. Next slide, please. So let's look at floral purchasing for home decor by specific consumer demographics. And we're going to use those same ones that we used for Valentine's Day and for Mother's Day. There's a lot of change in some of these demographics. Consumer age. We also look at educational attainment. And we also look at the level of floral spending of the household, seeing how minimal buyers, moderate buyers, and heavy buyers respond to these different types of purchasing occasions. Next slide, please. So let's look at consumer age. I thought I'd show the distribution of our survey respondents by age group in 2019. And this kind of gives us an idea of what the floral buying marketplace looks like, because all these are over 1,000 randomly selected floral buying households throughout the United States, both with a mailed survey. Half of the respondents came from a mailed survey, and half the respondents came from an internet-based survey. So it's going to be pretty good representation of the marketplace overall. So we thought this is probably gives us a good idea of what the composition of the floral market is in the U.S. right now. And we see that under 35 was 17% of the respondents of floral buying households. 15% said 35 to 44 in age, 16% 45 to 54, 23% 55 to 64, and 29% age 65 or older. So we see then that the top 2 age groups is over 50% of the floral buying market. Under 35, only 17%. And 35 to 54, if you want to lump those two together, around 31%. So that's our age distribution right now, what we believe of floral buying households. So it's really heavily weighted towards the baby boomer generation and part of Generation X. So that's the key market segment that's dominant right now. The millennial market is that under 35 and part of the 35 to 44, so it's probably around 20% of the market. And then Generation Z, well, let's see, Generation Z would be part of that under 35 as well. So maybe the millennial market isn't quite that large. Next slide, please. So let's look at our data line there. You can hardly see. Can you see the green line there? I'm having a hard time seeing that green line on the screen here, Saeed. But there is a line there that showed the under 35 trend line. It went from 52% in 2000, and this is for home decor, and it dropped to around 23% in 2019. So home decor for the under 35 group has really been dropping. It hasn't been increasing at all. It's really been dropping. And if you think about this, home decor trends, they talk about the millennials as being people who are on the go. Millennials are people who really value experiences and so forth. Uh, the home decor market it's not top of mind right now for them. And so we see now in 2009, there's a big drop in the under 35 on the instance of floral purchase for home decor. And it's also probably the fact that they just have so little time that they spend at home now. Either they're working or they're out socializing. Next slide, please. Oh, there's better. There we see the trend now for the 35 to 44. We see that it started around 36% in 2000. It bumped up to in 2007, right before the Great Recession, and then the recession took its toll. But then again in 2013, then it dropped again to 2019. So these 35 to 44-year-olds are kind of reflecting that same behavior that the under 35 with a lower incidence of purchase for home decor. And it's now at 32%. So it dropped, went up, and came back down again. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the next age group, the 45 to 54-year-olds. They basically started somewhat higher, around 46%, dropped down 2007, dropped even more during the recession of 2008. But when it came to 2013, they started an upward trend. After the recession, they started an upward trend and came back to, what is that, 46% there in 2019. So we're seeing a turnaround there in the home decor market for the 45 to 50-year-olds, 54-year-olds. Next slide. Then we went to the 55 to 64-year-olds, and there wasn't much of a trend line there. Slight decline, but really it started around 39% and ended up at 36%. So just a slight decline, kind of flat line there for the 55 to 64, largely maintaining, dropping a little bit, but largely maintaining over that 20-year period. And the next group is the 65 and older. Next slide, please. The 65 and older. This was interesting. They actually started lowest in 2000 at 32%. Didn't change much through 2007, same 32%. Then after 2007, they started making a slight increase there around 2013, and then that increase continued until they're about 39% in 2019. So there's been a slight increase then of that 65 and older group for home decor. And again, this kind of reflects these are largely baby boomers now in that 65 and older group. I think there's just a few more years before the end of the baby boomers now in 2024 reach into that 65 and older group. So it's almost all baby boomers now, plus the silent majority, is it silent majority group older than the baby boomers. So 39% increased from the 32% back in 2000. So there's a slight increase there for home decor of the baby boomer market. Next slide. Now, let's compare this to what we saw for Mother's Day. And here I pulled in Mother's Day trend lines. we saw the lowest incidence of purchase for home decor for the under 35, but look at what where they're spending their money on. That was Mother's Day, the highest for the under 35, the highest. And let's look at the next slide. We look back at Valentine's Day. Now, there was a slight decline there, but they were still, in 2019, they were still the highest spending on Valentine's Day. So it's not that the 35 aren't buying floral, it's what they're doing, what purchasing they're doing. They're spending their time, their dollars on more holiday, event-driven, experience-driven occasions. Valentine's Day, and Mother's Day, and they're not spending it for home decor. So that's the key understanding, is that the millennial market, they're more interested in the events, the happenings. They're not as much interested on the everyday floral. So that's a key finding in this research about the millennial market, is that they seem to be more interested in spending money and time on those experiences, Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, the happenings, the events, and less more so on everyday floral. But you see also the millennial group, or the baby boomer group, they've also, of course, we showed they increased for Valentine's Day, and they also increased for Mother's Day. So there's both ends of the spectrum, as we talked about in our prior presentations, are market opportunities for the holidays. Next slide. So consumer households age 45 and older have largely maintained or slightly increased their purchasing of floral products recently for home decor over time. Consumer households under the age of 45, and especially those under the age of 35, have shown a decline in floral purchasing for home decor over the survey years. This declining trend in floral purchasing for home decor among younger consumer groups is in stark contrast to their increasing trend in floral purchasing for floral holidays, such as Mother's Day and Valentine's Day. And that's a key finding of the research. Next slide, please. Older consumers, including the baby boomer generation, likely have more time to appreciate everyday floral in their home, evidenced by their somewhat higher incidence of floral purchasing for home decor. Marketing experts have often claimed that millennials most value experiences, and this trend is witnessed for both Mother's Day and Valentine's Day events and occasions, compared to their incidence of floral purchasing for home decor. Next slide, please. So let's look at the trend in household incidence of floral purchasing for home decor by educational attainment. Here's our distribution. We see that the graduate professionals represent 20% of the floral market, high school or less, 28%, college technical, 52%. So I always look at it like it's 20, 30, 50. 50% are college technical educated, 20% are grad professionals, and about 30% are high school or less. Next slide. Oh gosh, here's our trend again. It's hard for me to see that, but you can see that the trend line basically doesn't change much, going from around 26% to 29%, or 26 to 25. I can't read that. So it doesn't change much though. The high school trend line maybe goes up slightly. Next slide. See if we'll see it on the next slide. No, we don't. College technical went from 46% in year 2000, and it dropped somewhat down to 36% in 2019. And we saw the big drop came actually after the Great Recession, and it didn't recover after that. Next slide, please. And there's our interesting line. The grad professionals. It started out high, 49. Of course, you have to understand, back in 2000, this was Y2K. There was a lot going on in the marketplace then. That was the year where younger people had high incomes, high disposable income, because they were working for .coms, and the market was throwing billions of dollars at the internet-based companies at the time. So a lot was going on in 2000, and of course the higher disposable income of younger people, they spent on floral, and I discussed that in that trend paper I have on LinkedIn. So a lot going on in 2000, and we saw that the grad professional people were spending money on floral, 49%. It dropped then over a Great Recession period, and then recovered after 2013 to around 44%. So there's been a slight increase since 2013 to 2019. Probably the strongest increase of all the educational groups was the grad professional group, maintaining a bigger distance there. It's interesting that widening gap between the college technical and the grad professional, that gap is getting larger, bigger, and so it's something to think about. What's happening there? Why the grad professionals are actually increasing at a faster rate on incidence of floral for home decor than would the college technical group. So that's somewhat of an interesting finding there. Next slide, please. And let's compare what it was for Mother's Day, for some holidays, events. Look at Mother's Day. Mother's Day, we found that both the two higher education groups were actually on decline, somewhat for Mother's Day. Not much differences there, but it was only the high school or less where we actually saw a gain in Mother's Day over time. Next slide. And for Valentine's Day, very few, if any, difference. As we got to 2019, almost no differences. All the educational groups converged on the average score there, so there wasn't much difference at all in education for Valentine's Day. So those are some of the key differences between, again, holidays, events, and occasions to an everyday floral purchase such as home decor. Next slide. So in floral purchasing for home decor, there is a widening gap in purchase instance among graduate professional degreed households and college technical degreed households, with higher education gaining in home decor floral purchasing. That's an interesting trend. The education trends in consumer floral purchasing for home decor differ greatly from consumer purchasing for Valentine's Day and Mother's Day, and we showed that in the data. Only those households with a high school education or less showed a gain in floral purchasing for Mother's Day over time, but Valentine's Day showed minimal to no differences in floral purchasing among the education groups for Valentine's Day. And we did see differences in home decor. Next slide. So a key question that comes from is, are the industry's floral products for home decor aligned with the more highly educated floral purchasing market? I mean, we have to think about that. That's where the purchasing is starting to increase now. Home decor for the more highly educated, that 20% of the market that have graduate professional degrees, are our products aligned to meet that need? Go ahead. Next slide. So let's look at home decor by floral spending levels. Here's our breakdown of the floral market 2019 by floral spending levels. We had 21% of the market spent $50 or less on floral annually. Those are really minimal buyers. And another minimal buyer group is those spending $51 to $100. That's 27%. So collectively, we got 28% or 48% of the market, almost half the market, that spend $100 or less on floral annually. So, that's why I say we don't have a problem with non-buyers. We have a problem in our industry with just having a lot of minimal buyers in the marketplace. Those people who minimally purchase floral, but don't extend their purchasing to a greater amount than $100. Then we have that group, 100 to 250, 31%. 15% said they spent between $250 to $500, and 6% of the market spent over $500. And that 6% has been relatively stable over the past 20 years. If you look back to my LinkedIn paper, it's about 6% of the market are the big spenders, and that percentage hasn't changed much over time. Next slide, please. Oh, here again, I'm having trouble seeing this slide, but for the 50 or less, it tended to go from 21%, and it moved up to around 25%, I believe, by 2019. So there was a slight increase of the minimal buyers for home decor. Next slide. When we go to the $51 to $100 spending, not much change. 35 to 33, down 2%. Not much change over time. Next slide, please. The next biggest group here, that 100 to 250, went from 47% and dropped down. What is that? Around 40%. So we did have some loss in that the moderate spending group, 101 to 250. Next slide, please. And there we saw the 250 to 500 went from 49%. It dropped after the recession in 2008. And then from 2013 picked up again. So we saw a pickup in home decor spending of the 250 to 500. It went back to 47% by 2019. Next slide. And this was the real kicker, the one I wasn't expecting to see. The biggest floral spenders, over 500, 67% of them were purchasing floral for home decor back in 2000. And it dropped in 2007. It dropped more in 2013 and dropped even more to 2019, down to 34%. So it went from 67% down to 34%. Half was cut off. Half the people who were buying floral for home decor in that largest spending group, over $500, dropped, precipitous drop. And I think we have to understand what's happening here. Why do we see in the biggest spending group, their spending has dropped dramatically over the past 20 years on home decor? And maybe some top florists that service that high-end market might have some insight on this. Maybe they're spending money on other things. Maybe, and in fact, if you looked at the data, in fact, I'll show it later. Come on, next slide, please. I think we have some data here to show. Oh, yeah, look at this. This is Mother's Day. Well, they were definitely, look at that. That's the highest group, over $500. They were definitely in the market for Mother's Day. Look at that, almost 90% of them buying for Mother's Day. And let's look at Valentine's Day. Next slide, please. It's certainly not, it wasn't increasing, but it's still the highest number purchasing for Valentine's Day of that over 500 group. So is the question I have is this what's happening? Have the biggest spenders that were purchasing for home decor, are they now purchasing more for holidays, events, and occasions? Have they kind of switched their purchasing? Are they purchasing more for holidays, events, and occasions, and somewhat less spending or purchasing somewhat less? Lots of them are purchasing for home decor, but there's definitely a divergence in their purchasing patterns between the holidays, between holiday purchasing and everyday floral purchasing. Next slide, please. So consumer instant purchasing floral for home decor generally increases with increases in the overall level of household spending. I didn't mention that, but we did see an increase in purchasing with increase in spending, which you might expect. Over the past 20 years, the minimal floral buyers have slightly increased or maintained their incidence of floral purchasing for home decor, and the moderate floral spending households have slightly decreased or maintained their incidence of purchasing over the survey years. Next slide. Next slide. But the heavy floral buyers spending over $500 annually have strongly decreased their incidence of floral purchasing for home decor. And again, went from 67% in year 2000 down to 34% in 2019. The steep drop in home decor floral purchasing over time among the heavy floral spender households is in striking contrast to the Valentine's Day and Mother's Day floral purchasing trends, which showed strongly positive occasion purchasing. Next slide, please. So the question I have is, are the biggest floral spenders becoming more involved in holiday, event, and occasion floral purchasing, largely to the detriment of home decor, everyday floral purchasing? So that's something we have to think about. I'd like to hear from floral shops or those in the mass market industry that might have some understanding of this, but what is the reason why home decor among the biggest spenders has been off over the years? And what does this trend portend for more effective floral marketing? If the biggest buyers are doing less everyday floral home decor purchasing, but seem to be heavily involved in occasion purchasing, does that in any way influence what we as an industry need to do to reflect that trend? Do we need to generate more types of holidays domestic? I know there's a lot of people indicating they don't like to see that, but I think we really need to look at other holidays, events, occasions. Grandparents' Day is something that we kind of forgotten about. I know National Women's Day is becoming stronger. I also remember years ago in the Midwest, we had a holiday called Sweetest Day in the fall. We at Ohio State, we worked on a program with the Central Ohio florists called Sweetest Day Promotion, and then we had a sweeter, sweetest bouquet at 3 different price levels and sizes of arrangements. But I mean, there is some thought. We have to give some thought about what these trends, what they should tell us about what we as an industry need to do to be effective floral marketers. Next slide. So let's look at floral purchasing for myself by consumer demographics. Slightly different category for myself, not home decor, but just for myself. Let's look at it by the 3 demographic groups. Next slide, please. Let's look at by consumer age. Again, I've got to figure this out. I can hardly see that slide, but I believe we went from somewhere around 39% in 2000 down to, I believe that's 25% and 27%. Well, anyways, it's a downward trend for the under 35 for myself. Next slide, please. The 35 to 44, again, not much trend difference there. I think we're at 35% in year 2000, and we ended up over the clock to 20 years, and we're down to 33%. But not much change, up and down over the years, slightly, but not much change. Next slide, please. Let's look at the 45 to 54 age group. We started at 41% back in year 2000, and slight decline from the recession. And it seems like we flatlined, maybe went up a little bit here. We're at 36%, I believe, on 2019, 35% maybe. Next slide, please. And then the 55 to 64, this was interesting. This group started at 31%. They started kind of the lowest. And now they're relatively high at 37%. So they've gained a few percentage points over the years on for myself purchasing, that 55 to 64 age group. Next slide, please. And we also saw a thing for the next oldest age group, the 65 and older group. They started way down at 24% back in 2000, and now they're up to 37% in 2019. So here we see gains being made in For Myself among the two oldest age groups, 55 to 64 and 65 and older. Some similar trends what we saw back for home decor. But For Myself, again, tends to be Generation X and the baby boomer market. Now it's 37%, some of the highest purchasing for myself. So that trend has been up. And the other age groups, either it's been down slightly or not much change over the years. So the big movement in For Myself has been with the more elderly segment, or the 55 and older group. That's where the change has been occurring. The change has been positive. It's been an increase in purchasing for myself. Next slide. And let's let's look at what we saw for Mother's Day. Of course, for Mother's Day, we saw the youngest age groups is where the activity was occurring. But we also saw for the 65 and older group, they were increasing. So they were also increasing occasion buying Mother's Day. Next slide. And for Valentine's Day, we saw, even though it was a slight decline for the younger age groups, they were still the highest. But also, look, that 65 and older group was also increasing. So it's interesting that 65 and older group is playing with both occasion buying, Valentine's Day and Mother's Day, but also for every day. So this is the baby boomer market. These are floral buyers, and they're purchasing for both occasion buying, and they're also purchasing for everyday floral buying. And so that's really a target segment you can't miss on, because it's every day as well as holidays. So we have to really think strongly about that 65 and older group as we as an industry, and not forget about them, because they're probably the bread and butter of the floral market right now, and we need to take care of that market. And next slide, please. Only those consumers aged 55 or older have shown consistent gains in the instance of floral purchasing for myself over the past 20 years. What a statement. All other age groups have witnessed declines in self-purchasing of floral over the survey years, or showed maintained levels of self-purchasing over time. So it's only that 55 and older group that's really shown an increase in purchase incidents for myself over the last 20 years. And also, they give you the double whammy of they're also occasion purchasers as well. So that's really a target segment. Maybe we need to explore more deeply. We need to mine it more deeply, that 65 and older group. Okay, next slide, please. So here's some key questions. Are the industry's everyday floral products aligned with a more elderly and likely more knowledgeable consumer floral market? We have to think about that. Those are the groups that are largely buying. Do we need to do more? What does this trend portend for more effective floral marketing? The fact that for everyday floral purchasing, it tends to be the 55 and older group. But also, counter trend, what floral product attributes and floral product appeals might interest younger floral buyers? It's going to be maybe a harder sell, but we need to think about that as well. Maybe the what we're showing, what we're providing, isn't as attractive to the younger people than what we're doing now. So that is that trend being influenced by the products that they're seeing? That trend of the younger buyers having less interest in floral. So we're going to think about both of those things. Next slide, please. Trend in household instance of floral purchasing for myself. Let's look at educational attainment. Here again, Can't see that slide very well, but we started somewhere around 26%, I believe, high school or less, and we ended somewhere in the middle 30s. So high school or less showed an upward trend over time. Next slide, please. College technical didn't change much. 36% started year 2000, ended in 2009 at 34%. Not much change over that 20-year period. Next slide. Look at grad professionals. Again, year 2000, I talked about that year, Y2K boom, dot-com boom, and then later bust. But started pretty high there, 42%, I believe. And then it dropped right before the recession and continued somewhat higher through the 2007 to 2013, and it continued higher from 2013 on, and that's now 41%. So there's been some increase for myself of the college graduate professional group. Not the college technical, but the graduate professional group has increased their incidence of purchase for myself. So we have to think about, gee, that's a sophisticated market. What do we need to do to improve that even more? Next slide, please. So over the past 20 years, those with the high school education less have shown mixed trends on floral purchasing for myself. Up, then down most recently. Oh, that's the trend I didn't really actually see in the slide. So it did go up and then it came back down. Those, whoops, oh, my slides here, I'm falling apart. Those with a college or technical degree showed little change in floral purchasing for myself over the survey years. It just went from 34 to 36%. But since 2007, those with a graduate or professional degree have shown continuous small gains in the instance of floral purchase for myself, went from 30% to 41% purchase incidence over that time frame, 2007 on. Next slide. So are the industry's everyday floral products aligned with a more sophisticated consumer floral market? That's a key question we have to answer. And what does this trend portend for more effective floral marketing? What do we need to do? Maybe we need to do something different to get more of the college educated, the technical degree people. But what's happening with the graduate professional degree consumer, and why their incidence of purchase for myself is higher than that of a college educated? So you need to think about that. Next slide, please. So let's look at floral spending levels. By floral spending levels, $50 or less, I can't really see that slide, but it doesn't look like it changed much over the years. Been pretty stable there. Next slide. These are minimal buyers. The $50 to $100 went from 32% to 34%. Again, not much change, but up slightly since the recession of 2008. Next slide, please. And then the 100 to 250 actually came down a bit, went from around 39% down and is now somewhere, I believe, around 35%, somewhere around there. Okay, next slide, please. This is the group that made some increases. Those moderate buyers spending between $250 to $500. This is the key group that basically, for myself, went from 36%, went up to 2007, just maintained itself through the recession largely, and then increased again to 43% now in 2019. So that group has been increasing their spending, increasing the number of buyers, the incidence of purchase for myself. Next slide. Next slide. And this was the strange one to really look at. This was the biggest buyers. The biggest buyers were high, around 50% of them buying for myself in the year 2000, dropped down to around 40% to 2007. Again, parts of that drop were the fact that some of the more affluent buyers, they really cut back the floral buying before the recession actually hit. In 2007, we showed it in our 2007 study that some of the biggest floral buyers had really pulled back their floral buying a year before in 2007. And we made some predictions about that at that time to our client base. And then it increased, came out strongly from the recession from 2007 to 2013. But then there again, right in 2019, I know there was some talk about recession, and we had Jamie Dimon speaking year after year about we're going to go into recession, where the sky is falling, sky is falling. Again, I think that big spending group is really influenced by the conditions of the marketplace and their freeness of spending. And again, this is for myself. This is for myself spending. It's not for a holiday event or occasion. It's basically for myself. And so we see big swings in that purchase incidence for myself among the biggest floral spenders. I'd like to, it'd be interesting to talk to florists or mass marketers that might have some experience with this, if they know people in the market that fit this pattern here of yin and yang. But it's really quite it's about a 20% change in the incidence of gone from 40% to 60% over the survey years. So quite a big difference there. In floral spending for myself among the biggest floral spenders. Next slide, please. So consumer interest in purchasing floral products for myself generally increases with increases in the overall level of household floral spending. In general, those consumer household spending $250 or less annually on floral products witness little change in floral purchasing for myself over the past 20 years. But those spending $250 to $500 witnessed small, steady gains in floral purchasing for myself from 2000 to 2019. It went from 38% to 34%. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The biggest floral spenders, those spending over $500 annually on floral products, and that category, over 500, our actual survey data we collect goes from 500 to 1,000, 1,000 to 1,500, 1,500 to 2,000, and over 2,000. So all those collectively are 6% of the market. So that over 500 includes those people spending $1,000 to $2,000 or more on floral in a year. Not just 500, but over 500 includes those other categories. They witness wide swings in self-purchasing of floral products over the survey years, and it's apparently related to boom and bust cycles. For the biggest floral spenders, the incidence of floral purchasing for myself ranged from a low of about 40% in 2007 to a high of nearly 60% in 2013. So that's a pretty big swing in the incidence, gone from 40% to 60% in just a few years. So there's a lot of movement there among the big floral spenders on self-purchasing of floral products. Next slide, please. Key question: does the increased volatility in the everyday floral market among the biggest floral spenders make this market segment more difficult to service? That's what I wonder about after seeing those big swings, because it's got to be reflective to some extent in the local markets. If this is happening on a national level, it may be happening more so on a regional or local level. So what does this trend portend for more effective floral marketing? I mean, what do we have to do to service this kind of volatility in that big spending everyday floral market? Next slide, please. So now we're going to explore. That was the end of our discussions on everyday floral purchasing, and we're going to explore our obligation floral purchasing theory in relationship to that. Next slide. We put forward before, and you may want to go back to our last two presentations to get more update on this. that we've brought forward a model, adoption model of consumer floral purchasing, where we indicate that initiation of floral buying starts with an obligation floral purchase, maybe where the consumer feels somewhat obligated to buy floral, maybe for Valentine's Day, maybe for Mother's Day, maybe for a prom or dance or an anniversary. And that if there's satisfaction with those initial obligate purchases, then they tend to purchase floral as gifts for others. And we have various gifting categories in our survey. And if they're satisfied with those purchases, they make a purchase finally for oneself. And so this is like a process model of purchasing where we start out with obligate purchasing, we expand to purchasing floral gifts for others, and then finally then that relates to purchasing for oneself. And so we're trying to understand, how does one evolve to become a regular everyday floral buyer? Next slide. Oops, my Model A came on top of that. This is our this is our Model A of obligate floral purchasing, where again, obligate floral purchasing leads to floral purchasing as gifts, and that then leads to floral purchasing for self. So that's our first model that we put forward. Next slide, please. And we discussed this more before, and I won't go through all the details, but each of those constructs, obligate floral purchasing is just, we have a measurement model underneath those, and that's those boxes to the right. So that's our survey data. Our measured data is those boxes to the right. So obligate floral purchasing, we have Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, anniversary, and we also had proms and dances in that model. We then looked at floral purchasing as gifts, and we measured that as oh gosh, we had Get Well. We also had coworker gift. We also have a thank you gift, and we also had a cheer up gift of floral. And those were our metrics that we used for floral purchasing as gifts. And then we looked at floral purchasing for self, which were the two we covered today, for myself and for home decoration. And we also had a metric in our survey called office decoration, but we may drop that because it didn't load very well on the model. It had a low loading, and we discussed that in our previous presentation. So if you're a little confused about this, go back to our Mother's Day presentation, our Valentine's Day presentation to get a little bit more background on this model. So our key things here is, what are the drivers between obligate floral purchasing? How big of an impact does it have on floral purchasing for gifts? And then how big of an impact does floral purchasing for gifts have on self-purchasing of floral? And those are two question marks. So when we run the data, next slide, we run our data with this model that we propose, and we see two positive driver scores there, 0.40 and 0.44. And those are both positive. So that indicates that obligate floral purchasing has a positive impact on floral purchasing for gifts, and floral purchasing for gifts has the even somewhat stronger purchasing driver, purchasing for self. And so that gave us an indication that, oh, this model has some legs. And we have some different characteristics below describing how well the data fits the model, and it does. And you can go back to our prior presentation for more discussion on that. But this was so much. So we're saying, hey, this model has legs. It indicates that obligate floral purchasing, for every unit increase in obligate floral purchasing, we get a 0.4 increase in purchasing for gifts, and for every increase in 1 unit increase in purchasing for gifts, we get a 0.44 increase in floral purchasing for self. Both those are positive increased driver scores. So it indicates that this model does have some legs to it. Next slide. But then we said, well, really is a bigger model we need to test, or a different model. We want to test if the self-purchasing floral, is it mediated by floral gifting? That is, does it have to go in that sequence? Next slide. And our model B says that, floral purchasing, obligate floral purchasing, can impact floral purchasing and gifts, which then impacts purchasing for self. But maybe obligate floral purchasing has a direct impact of floral purchasing for self. And so the key question is the impact of obligate floral purchasing on self-purchase mediated by floral gifting? That is, do we have to go to floral gifting to get to self-purchase? Does floral gifting have to occur before floral purchasing for self occurs? So the question becomes, is that direct line between obligate floral purchasing, that direct driver to self-purchasing, is that significant? Is it big? Is it small? Or is it non-existent? Next slide. And so here's our model. There's our factors, and then there's the actual measurement model that we use. And we test it with the data we have for 2019. Next slide. And there's our driver scores. We have 0.41 between obligate floral purchasing and floral purchasing for gifts, and 0.48 for purchasing from gifts to self-purchase. That means both of them are positive. But look at that score from obligate floral purchasing to floral purchasing for self. It's negative 0.09 NS. It's not significant. That means it's no different than zero. It means we could delete that driver completely between obligate floral purchasing and floral purchasing for self. It means it doesn't exist. It's not significant. It doesn't matter. But what that means is if there's no direct linkage between obligate floral purchasing and for self, it means that we must go through gifting. That to get self-purchase, we must instill floral purchasing for gifts, and then from gifts to self-purchase. So this is really important. This says that obligate floral purchasing, like for Mother's Day or for Valentine's Day, it's totally mediated by purchasing for gifts. That is, purchasing for gifts must occur, and that purchasing for gifts then increases in its impact on floral purchasing for self. Now we can also compute what the indirect effect is between obligate floral purchasing as it impacts gifting, and then from there to self-purchase. And I will compute that later on, what the indirect effect is. But right now, the fact that we have no direct effect between obligate floral purchasing and for self, that's really important, because it indicates that in this model of self-purchasing, that purchasing for gifts is really important. That is, that has to occur, and obligate purchasing has a positive impact on gifting, but the impact gifting must occur to get to self-purchase, the impact on self-purchase. So next slide, please. If the impact of obligate floral purchasing on self-purchasing of floral is totally mediated by floral gifting, as Model B suggests, then the floral industry should likely focus attention on floral gifting promotions, as well as obligate floral purchasing holidays and occasions, such as Valentine's Day and Mother's Day, to ultimately increase everyday floral sales. So our model that more obligate floral purchasing leads to more floral purchasing as gifts, which leads to more self-purchasing of floral, and floral gifting is a requirement. That model basically is pretty strong. It exists in the marketplace. This is what our data is telling us. Now, we need to conduct more validation testing in this model, and we also need to analyze its relevance before promoting this model theory to the industry. Some initial testing I've done, it looks like we're explaining about 25 to 30% of the variance in each of these gifting factors. It's not totally explained. It doesn't totally explain all the self-gifting or self-purchasing, but it's showing that it explains a big chunk of self-purchasing is being explained by this model. And I have more validation and more relevancy testing to do to get more information on this. and we need to do that before we can promote this to the industry. But this initial indication shows that this model does have some legs. Next slide. Okay, we're talking about our update of our survey, the 2025 U.S. Consumer Floral Tracking Survey. We're calling for research sponsors. Next slide, please. Here's basically an outline of the research. This isn't all the analysis and things that's in the study, but this is the major components of the study. We have an introduction. We have consumer floral demand measurements there. The consumer evaluation of the retail floral outlets where they purchase from. Next slide. We go into floral channel performance. We look at how the channels are performing in the industry on 31 different attributes. We look at customer satisfaction, and we build, like this model here, we build a customer satisfaction model that looks at what aspects of the channel, product quality, service, what have you, what aspects of the channel are driving customer satisfaction, driving purchase intention, driving level of purchasing, and what those key factors are and what the industry needs to focus on. So that's what our study is all about. Consumer demand, some of the things you've seen today, just a small aspect of what's in the study. And basically, we're now asking for support for the study. So what I'd like you to do, if you're interested in this, send me an email. I've already got 2 companies that have said they're very interested in funding this study. I've looked at the budget. We've analyzed the budget for this project. Somewhere it's going to be about $60,000 to $65,000, somewhere in that range. We're looking to get maybe 12 or 13 sponsors. It's looking like it might be a $5,000 investment for each sponsor. It could be less if we get more co-sponsors. I'll know more. But send me an email. I'll send you a complete, no obligation proposal that will discuss what's in the study this year, what types of metrics you receive, what the deliverables are, and how we present it to you. So if you have interest in this kind of research, just send me an email, and I'll get out a proposal to you. And it's no obligation. You can read it over, discuss with your company personnel whether or not this is for you, what information would be helpful to you. But we would like to really continue this research and continue it forward. We think we've got a good study over the past 20 years. I'd like to keep it going for another 20 years if I can. But I think it's one of the better studies we have in our industry to really understand what the consumer market is telling us and how we as an industry need to become closer to the consumer, understand the consumer better, and do a better job at marketing our floral products. Next slide, please. So I wish to thank you for your attention, and I'll now take any questions from the audience.
Thomas, I think since you're on your cell phone, we might have lost your camera. Can you try to open that up?
Oh.
Yeah. There you go. And then I wanted to confirm, I think you might have just forgotten to put all the green lines because my team had nothing to do with the presentation. So I want to make sure you might have forgotten to calculate that because that's PowerPoint. So just make sure.
All right.
Maybe for next time you could just double check that.
I need to do a better job at seeing how the contrast between the background and the slide.
I just think you forgot to formulate that one because it was not the contrast. If you saw a green line, then I'm colorblind because I certainly didn't see even a green line.
There is one aspect about the presentation. I don't know if you knew that the color in the background.
Still, by the way, we're just chit chatting, but go ahead.
The background of the slides I use, that peach color, that's actually peach fuzz. That's the Pantone color. Pantone color for 2024. So nice, I got the RBG codes and put that in. No one told me. No one said, "Hey, I see you use peach fuzz," but I did.
Good for you. So we did have a question, and thank you everybody for hanging tough for an hour and a half. This is the longest show we've had. So thank you very much, because it is great information. And thank you, Thomas Prince, to joining. So, I like to look at the past to understand where we're headed, right? So we are looking 5 years behind. So the reason why we want to bring Thomas Prince and Prince and these reports on is because to encourage everybody to invest into our industry, to get this information for the years to come. So do reach out to Thomas Prince to learn more about how you can get involved to fund this research project. And the great part is, Thomas, as well, that you guys give the report to the donators or to the funders for one entire year so that they could have a head start, correct?
Correct. Yes, they get it. The study is embargoed to the industry. Only those sponsors get the data 1 year after presentation. So 1 year after we make our last presentation to the industry members, they get a year of exclusivity of the research. And that's just so that they can basically, if there's anything that they want to work on or implement from the results of the research, that they have time to do that. And that they're, at least a year or so ahead of anyone else in the industry that might eventually see some of the data.
So that's an advantage to everybody
Right.
involved and everybody that's funding. So that's an advantage. Now, we do have a little one question or one shout out. What's Oldsmar Florist? Hello from Tampa, Florida. Thank you for our florists that are watching. It's awesome. This show is for everybody in all sectors. So thank you. And then Mike Black actually texted me. So he said, hey, make sure to text me what he responds. So he had a question, and I'm going to record this. So he had a question, and the question is that Flower Feelings campaign effective in any way of your service, effectiveness, or can it be calculated? Can it be calculated today? I guess not, because you haven't done anything since. But when you do, is there a way to include it into that to see how that flower feeling is doing so that we could actually help them with this information as well?
Well, yeah, we could actually do that. The problem with that is we do a random selection of 1,000 households across the country. Therefore, if that flower feeling is not totally across the industry,
it is across the industry. So it's
even in rural areas.
That we can get you information. We can put you in contact with them to discuss. But I do believe, because they're hitting a lot of households and it's a mass nationwide reach at the moment, from my understanding. I will, that's what I've been kind of showing on the banners. We will be doing a live at Fun and Sun, where we'll be going with a panel. And that's a great question to ask if it is within all the rural areas, for sure.
Yeah, we could ask a couple questions in the survey that would get at maybe understanding the messaging, or if they had an understanding of aspects of the campaign. We did that with the FPO, the Flower Promotion Organization. We measured about 20 different messages that were in the research and see if they basically, if the consumers could recognize those. And then, of course, we also had some other ones that weren't in the campaign, just to see if they were just checking off categories, without really having an understanding of it all. But that's definitely an aspect of the research that we can incorporate.
I think it would be a great idea. I think Michael's asking for more analytics now, but we really can't get there. But I think it would be a great idea, because it is a self-purchasing campaign, right?
Right.
So if we believe in that, it would be great to see how it is affected. I believe it has, and I believe in supporting all efforts that are positive efforts. So I would love to do that. And if you need us to connect you with Steve Dion, it would be my pleasure to do it. So we could and maybe they might fund it. So they
might be a co-sponsor. In fact, we have had some co-sponsors in the past that have asked us to add additional question or so in the survey, and we've been able to do that. It's been very helpful, because to get data all across the country from a random selection of floral buyers is really, for some companies, very important information.
Great. I was hoping to see a little bit more as well, some projections of the years to come. What can we say with projections? Do you have any projections of anything at all for the years to come in 2025, 2026? How do we look? How does the self-buying look? Because I do believe that COVID did affect it a bit, a lot of it. So I don't think that we're projecting those or showing those in your studies.
No.
I do think, and I'm pretty confident that the numbers did go up. So that is something that would
Well,
be included in your future research, correct?
that's correct. That's the reason, one of the key reasons why we want to do the study is to see the impact of COVID has on these metrics. And because we did our last study right before COVID, we have a data point right before and we'll have a data point after, and we'll be able to project what that change occurred in virtually every metric that we've measured in the study. And so we'll be able to understand, and then going back for the past prior, 10 years to see, did it influence the curvature of the trend? Did it influence, did the trend go up and go up even more, or did it go down? What were the aspects of COVID in influencing that trend line? That's really important information. And that's what we'll be able to assess with our next study. But we need the next study to do it. We can't do that without that.
When are you looking for your deadline to raise the funds? Where are you now and where do you need to be?
It's kind of floating. A lot of times it depends on when we get the funds in. Like in prior years, we always said, well, we'd like to have the funds in by end of September or early October. But sometimes companies couldn't commit until later in the year. And so we then had to delay the project. Well, we have always said, if the project either goes out in late fall or we do it right after Valentine's Day. The survey goes out right after Valentine. Those are those key points we like to do it at. Late in the fall or early in the spring, right after Valentine's Day. And so those are the two key survey points we like to do. Or else we do it early in the summer, like June. We'll send a survey out in June. The problem with that, though, is consumers go on a lot of vacationing in June and July and August. And so we have to wait longer on the surveys to come back in, especially the mailed surveys. The internet survey is very easy to do.
Yeah,
We get the data basically within a week or so.
and I
But
think
the
you'll
mailed
find. Go ahead. I'm
the
sorry.
mailed survey takes longer. We sometimes wait three months to get the mailed survey data in. We go out with reminders. And so that data trails in over a longer period of time. But we kind of like that.
Yeah, I think considering that you haven't done it in 5 years, you'll see that the internet emailed surveys will actually pick up a bit, and you could do a lot of different things with even social media to improve that as well and to get more surveys in at a faster time. You just have to be careful with spam or bots. I did notice a trend in some of the slides, of the many slides. Thank you for that. But some of the many slides was that 2008. In some sense, in some ways, didn't dip. In some ways, it's bounced right back. So we have a lot of talk about recession right now. To look what happened in the stock market, what have you. Now, what do you predict-ish? I don't want to put you on the spot, but if we were to hit a recession, how long would it last? And what are we looking at from your past research?
That was the same question we were asked in 2007, because when we showed them the data of the biggest floral buyers pulling back in their spending, they asked us how bad would the recession going to be. Now, of course, at the time we said, oh, it's probably going to be maybe 10%, maybe a 20% pullback. We didn't really have too much data to go on. But now we can look back at our survey data, because we did a study in 2007, we did another study in 2010, and then another one in 2013. So we can start looking at those trend lines of what happened before. Now, that was a pretty deep recession, and it was long, and it was a rolling recession, if you recall. It started on the coast, and then came the Midwest later. So the Midwest, we didn't feel that recession until after 2008, but then it lasted from 2010 to 2012 easily. even into 2013. So, it really did hit a long time in the Midwest, but it was slow coming. It was like a year later that we felt it, whereas the coast felt it. New York and California felt it very quickly.
Wow, that's very interesting. And again, I encourage everybody. And I just thought of an idea of maybe you want to start a crowdfundme, a GoFundMe, where everybody could put in what they can afford. As a community, there is power in community. We,
Right.
as the Bloom Together initiative, have raised 16,000 in 3 years with the party to donate. So to nonprofits. So I think that if you put that different angles, think of it differently, and try to do different ideas, because it would be better to have this sooner than later in reality, so
Right.
people can prepare for what may be coming, if there's anything coming. So if you want to chat about that a little bit, I think there's ways to be a little bit more creative in raising funds this time around. That would be great.
Right, right, right.
That would be
And in
fantastic.
fact, we will have a few more people to knock on doors for those who've been our funders in the past, because those are going to be people who have had the research before. They know basically what they're getting. They know what they got before. A lot of times it's more of they want to do it, but they've got other things on their schedule or what
Makes
they're
sense.
doing right now. And they just don't feel the timing is right. But I think right now the timing probably is right, at least from the survey perspective, because we've done these studies about every 5 or 6 years. And now here we are again. We're going to be 5, 6 years down from 2019 if we do this study in 2025. So we're about the same time frame, and it would be good to have, since we do have that 2019 time point right before the recession, to then make the comparison to after COVID. COVID's over with now. Where are we now, and how has COVID influenced that marketplace on spending? I know when the endowment did a study on purchasing, they just are looking to do another study on indoor, I believe, indoor potted plant buying. They're looking at their study before was really too premature. COVID was still occurring at the time, and so they really hadn't understood what the end result of that was. So now is the time to really finalize and do a study now and see what had happened since COVID.
Fantastic. Want to
Go
take
ahead.
some questions just in case if there's anybody to take questions again. I've got to run. I've got a couple more meetings, and thank you for your time, Thomas. And if there's a question, wait around for a second or two to take a question if you guys want. But I'm very impressed how people are still hanging out to watch the show. So thank you to everybody. Thomas, I don't see any more questions coming in. So thank you for your time. I'm gonna put you in the Bloom room, as I call it, and just say my goodbyes. But thank you for your time, and look forward to having you again. And next time, hopefully we'll have new results. And oh, there might be a question coming in. Let's see. Oh, wait a minute. Here. I could have used this back in 2007 when research in retail florists was almost unheard of. This is excellent information. That's from Blooming Canyon. So thank you, Blooming Canyon, for the update. And see, Blooming Canyon might put in $100.
Well,
So it's worth seeing a crowdfundme or GoFundMe where everybody could put in whatever they can, just like that flower feeling does. And that's how, with a community feel and supporting each other, we will continue to grow. And we're big, and we're strong enough together. We're strong together. What were you going to say, Thomas?
I was just going to say, we were open to all types of funding on this, but we want to basically go back to our co-sponsors from prior years, see where they are, and see if we can work that through. It's always easier for us to deal with fewer funders than have hundreds of funders. But I mean, with the way we can distribute the information today is so much different than 20 years ago that it really makes it a lot simpler to send out reports and to communicate with our clients better. So
Exactly. So Thomas, thanks you again for the collaboration and coming here to spread the word, and hopefully this helps to find the funds for you. So thank you again for your time, and hopefully to see you soon at a convention, or we'll stay in touch.
yeah, we'll have to talk about the next topic.
For
Uh,
certainly. Certainly
whether
we're
whether we I would like to look at, maybe, since gifting is important on the obligation purchasing model, maybe look at various the gifting categories that we have, and see how those trends have changed over time.
And if anybody has any topics that you'd like to cover, I'm talking to the audience here. Please do reach out to us at Connect at New Bloom Solutions and say, I would love Thomas Prince to talk about this. And then maybe we could look at that. Maybe we could have a little bit more projections or guesstimates for 2025 and 26. And then if anybody has any suggestions on any other topics, that would be great to have as well. Again, don't forget, the show's for the community, by the community. So feel free to chime in.
Look at the outline I put there. Those are all the survey topics that we've covered so far in the survey. Yeah. So there's a lot to chew on out in on that outline.
Yes, yeah. There's a lot to chew on, and I think that there's also adjusting in some cases when it comes to what the community is asking for now. That can change as well, because COVID stirred up that pot and the beehive, and now there's a lot more findings to be found.
Right.
All right. Appreciate you, Thomas. I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good one. You take care now.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So everybody, again, thank you for joining. Thank you for staying on. That you're championing this. So that is exciting and awesome. And if you do like the show, please do subscribe. Please share. Press the alert key. We always appreciate it. Don't forget, as you saw throughout the show, Californian Dreaming with Flowers, Fun and Sun, and Flowers and Scents, Willie Armelini. We're going to be doing on the 6th, on the 4th, we're going to be having a show live at the party at 7 p.m. to 8:30 PST, right? So it was a little late for EST, but not a little late for California time. And then we're also going to have the next, not the next day, but the Friday on the 6th. This is one I'm excited about. And this one's a 9 a.m. PST, which is early enough for us over here at EST, which is that flower feeling panel. Again, you can catch it live here. You can catch it live on LinkedIn, but we are going to be going live on a panel. First time. We won't be taking questions, or maybe we will. So chime in and tune in, and maybe you could ask questions live as well, which would be fun and exciting. And that flower feeling is a great initiative, and we want to learn more about that. And then right after that, we're going to do a special Bloom Show Roadshow. Bloom Show Roadshow, like the Antique Roadshow. It'll be Willie and I highlighting. First, Monet's coming onto the show. Monet Pippin will be her first time coming onto the show to talk about the show, and also Chris from Cal Flowers. And then right after, we're going to be doing, that'll be real quick. And then right after, every 5 to 10 minutes, we're going to have a new exhibitor showing off their product. And we're going to have one of the Outstanding Variety Award winners, or maybe a couple, but one of them I know will be there, maybe showing their product, talking about their company and their product. And maybe we'll take some questions as well. That will be live. I'm super excited about that because it is an industry first. If I'm wrong, please someone tell me. But I'm super excited to be doing that, especially with the legend Willie Armelini, talking about flowers, talking about the companies, and showing off what Fun and Sun is all about, because Fun and Sun is awesome. It's fun. I know, sorry, but Fun in Sun is truly what it is, and it's a great opportunity to see the other side of the flower industry in California. I am also going to, and the Bloom Show is also going to Chrysanthemum Week. I will be creating videos, doing interviews, so keep an eye on our channel, because that'll be all that information, and it's an insight I've never been. So join me as I discover and go on an adventure within California with Deli Floor. I have to say that, with Deli Floor, they're sponsoring it. So super excited. They're sponsoring us being at Chrysanthemum Week, the Bloom Show being at Chrysanthemum Week, and doing the videos and highlighting everything that goes down at the Deli Show, at the Deli Party, which is world famous Deli Party. If you want more information with that, reach out to connect at New Bloom Solutions. It's open doors. I know I've asked people if they've known about Chrysanthemum Week, and people don't. Some people don't. So if you want to learn more about Chrysanthemum Week, I've heard it's almost like a floral safari. So it's really cool. All the breeders open their doors. And again, Deli Floor is like an anchor party at the end and a beautiful location. I've been to Deli Floor before, and I can't wait to go back and check it out. Have amazing food, meet amazing people, and just enrich myself with the Colombian culture and the beauty of that area. I think it's La Ceja, Rio Negro area, which is stunning. So it's such an adventure and experience to join. And don't forget that we are also going to be at Expo Flor. If you are a farm or you have a booth and you want to take advantage of that investment of having your booth, and you want to highlight it and keep a record of it and evergreen marketing materials and allow us to market your booth as well, reach out at Connect. Let me see here, at Connect at New Bloom Solutions. Why? Because we're looking for sponsors to cover the expenses, to be able to go around and film and highlight everybody's booth that sponsors, obviously, and show the beauty and the hard work that everybody does, having all your product there at once. So spread the word. Would love the support. And don't forget to subscribe and like this show and show us your support and all the guests that joined the show as well. So thank you again for your time, everybody. It was amazing to have you hang out for almost 2 hours. I'm hungry for hanging out with us. Really appreciate you guys, and see you guys next time.
The Bloom Show.